On the day of our wedding, I did not bleed. My husband publicly declared to the world that he was demoting me from wife to concubine. Out of consideration for our years together, I will not drown you in the pond, but I will make your life a living hell. I was forced to drink red flowers and became his tool for satisfying his desires. When he was consummating his marriage with his stepsister, I was forced to serve him by the bedside. He hated me with every fiber of his being and tortured me in every way possible. Wang Xin, this is the price you pay for your infidelity. In my second life, I knelt in the snow for 3 days, begging to annul the marriage. Chapter 1. The day I died was a sunny day. The doctor said I had no will to live, that I was on my deathbed. Shuangwen's eyes turned red with anger. He grabbed my collar and pulled me up. Who gave you permission to die? You haven't repaid what you owe me yet. I didn't even have the strength to cough, but my lifeless eyes still held a hint of a smile. Well, the more he tortured me, the faster I would die. Even as you die, you still won't tell me who that adulterer is? You love him so much. At that moment, I finally understood why Wang Xuyin could tell me so openly that it was she and her stepmother who had plotted to ruin my reputation before their marriage. When I learned this, I had wept bitterly and told Shuangwen. I thought my innocence was clear, and I could die with a clean conscience. But he didn't believe me. He pushed me away with a cold expression. Suyin was right. You're truly despicable. You're a slut yourself. But you have to drag others down with you? Wang Xuyin knew he would never believe me, even on his deathbed. Thinking of this, I was filled with hatred and forced myself to speak. That man is 1,000 times better than you. Even in bed he is more passionate than you. Shuangwen lost his mind. He cursed the doctor out of the room, then tore open my clothes. Wang Xin, you'll die under me, even if it's your last breath. He threw my lifeless body onto the bed and climbed back up with a hideous expression. As I looked at the faint light filtering through the window paper, I finally exhaled my last breath. Shuangwen and I had a youthful friendship and had promised to marry each other. I had thought that the day of our wedding would be the day I escaped the fire pit and found my soulmate. I never imagined that all of this would be ruined by a single piece of fallen red silk. When I opened my eyes again, I was holding a golden hairpin and stabbing it into the soft flesh of my thigh. The excruciating pain finally made me believe that I had been reborn. Despair and surprise overwhelmed me simultaneously, causing me to vomit blood. In that moment, I finally realized how much I hated myself. I leaned on the chair to stand up and slowly wiped the blood off the table. If I remember correctly, today was the day the Shui family was supposed to come to our house for the matchmaking. And it was also the day my stepmother and Wang Xuyin began their grand scheme to plot against me. My dear nephew has come all this way. I should have called Xuyin out to meet you. But this child has been acting strangely lately, always wanting to go out and play. We had to send someone to fetch her back. As I entered the main hall, I heard my stepmother's words. A cold smile curled my lips as I motioned for Zhao Laopa to open the door. With a creak, the voices inside fell silent for a moment. So you were entertaining guests here, Mother? It was Xuyin who was rude. I looked up to see my stepmother sitting beside Wang Xuyin, with Shuangwen and his mother on the other side. They were all gathered together, and anyone unaware would think they were a happy family. My stepmother's gentle expression froze slightly. You arrived quickly today. Come over and pay your respects to Lady Ho. I forced myself to stand still, trembling all over, and walked past Shuangwen. At that moment, Lady Ho was very kind to me, holding my hand and praising me endlessly. Shuangwen also smiled sincerely. Last month, I hunted a fine fox pelt in the mountains. With winter approaching, you can have it made into a scarf or gloves. I turned my head and smiled sweetly at Wang Xuyin's jealous gaze. Thank you, Shui Prince. Everyone in the capital knew that Shuangwen loved me deeply. I lost my mother at the age of 2 and lived a difficult life at home. always cautious and careful. My stepmother flattered me in public but treated me harshly at home. On the day I met Shuangwen, I was punished for eating 2 extra pieces of Wang Shuing's favorite pastry and made to kneel in the corridor. The sun was merciless, blinding me. He happened to be visiting his father and quietly left an umbrella for me. At the autumn banquet a month later, he looked at me with pity. My father once deeply loved a concubine when he was young, and I have learned much about the ways of the inner quarters. If you find life too difficult, you may send someone to find me. My heart, which had been soaked in icy water for so long, suddenly began to race and boil. His single sentence forced out the tears I had been holding back for years. Shuangwen fumbled around, flustered, hitting himself in frustration. I was wrong. I was wrong. I shouldn't have said anything to hurt you. I wiped away my tears and smiled. In that twilight, I gave him my heart. How could I not hate him? He told me that he knew how difficult it was for a woman to be born, and that the strict Confucian teachings made it hard for us to breathe. He promised me his undivided love, saying he would always trust me and protect me with his life. He stood with me against our enemies, cursing my stepmother and Wang Shuing, saying that once we were married, he would make sure they would always be beneath us, to allow me to hold my head high in the mansion. He spent a fortune to build my reputation as a virtuous woman, sending me precious gifts in the name of the lady of the manor. Yet it was also he who, while showering me with affection, maintained a clandestine relationship with his stepsister. Later, I discovered that every time he returned from his studies, the gifts he brought me were also given to his stepsister. In the final days of my previous life, Wang Shuing came every day with gifts, telling me how the two of them had spent romantic evenings together and how they had been unfaithful in the backyard of the mansion. In the end, Wang Shuing stepped on my hand with a smile and said, "Sister, your so-called gentleman is much more genuine in front of me." He said he was tired of acting, and when he found out you had lost your chastity, he felt a great sense of relief. On the day of my wedding, the joy in the red silk wedding characters almost lifted me to the heavens. After enduring a life of coldness and suffering at home, the day had finally come. I now had my own home and a husband who truly loved me. So, when Shuangwen lifted the veil, I couldn't help but smile. Husband. The red candles warmed the room, and I met Shuangwen's eyes, filled with astonishment and tenderness. Seeing, there is such a beauty in this world. From now on, we are one. I will treat you well. He held my hand tightly, his suppressed breath burning me to tears. The heavy wedding attire slowly slipped off my body, and I finally closed my eyes, feeling safe as I pressed against his chest. The dream ended abruptly. Before I could open my eyes, I was dragged by my hair and thrown to the ground. Shuangwen held a white handkerchief, his eyes red. "Where is the blood?" Before I could react, I forced myself to ignore the discomfort below and pulled the wedding gown over me. When I saw what he was holding, my heart sank piece by piece. Husband. I don't know. I've never done anything to betray you. I've never left the house. And I've never seen another man besides you. In response, Shuangwen slapped me. He glared at me with a menacing expression, his hands tightly gripping my neck. Wang Shuing, who is your lover? He grabbed me again, lifting me up like an object and dragging me to the window. He made me scream in pain, repeatedly demanding to know who the adulterer was. The humiliation and pain left me no time to think. In my desperation, I begged him to let me die. Husband, without the blood of my virginity, I deserve to die. Please let me die. Please. For the sake of our past, spare me some dignity and let me take my own life. I had never seen Shuangwen like this before. He smiled. Die? Wang Shuing, I will make you a despicable prostitute despised by all. I will bring shame upon your family, and I will make you suffer for the rest of your life, until you tell me who your lover is." He kept his word. Early the next morning, he had people tie me up and send me to my parents' house. A crowd gathered to watch the spectacle, and the Marquis Mansion's matron held me down and forced me to kneel on the ground. "Your eldest daughter did not lose her virginity on her wedding night. Lord Wang wants an explanation from our family." My father scrambled out of the gate and, without even looking at me, slapped me across the face. "What a disgrace to our family! What a disgrace!" He beat his chest and cried loudly, then told the Marquis Mansion to do whatever they wanted with me. The Wang family cannot have a daughter who brings such shame to the family. The Marquis Mansion can do whatever they want with her, even kill her or sell her into slavery. And my family will not say a word. Family honor above all. A stern sense of justice. I knelt dumbly on the bustling street, watching the family that had never given me any warmth abandon me. Perhaps I shouldn't have lived to grow up. On the day my mother died, she should have taken me with her. Why did I have to live in this world and suffer such humiliation day after day? My stepmother also left the house. She glanced at me disdainfully and coaxed the Marquis Mansion's nanny into the mansion. The two mansions discussed for half a day and decided to demote me to a concubine and send Wang Xuyin into the mansion. The Wang family lost face in this matter, nearly depleting their entire fortune to contribute a dowry, all to marry Wang Xuyin into the household. Their wedding was not grandly celebrated. On the day Wang Xuyin entered the mansion, the matron in charge bound my hands once more. "The young master has shown mercy, allowing you to serve him in bed." I was stripped naked without any dignity and bound to the wedding bed. Wang Xuyin watched me with interest. "Oh, sister, how pitiful you look." She covered her mouth and giggled softly, leaning into Xue Xingzhou's embrace. "Xue brother, on our wedding day, why did you bring her in?" Xue Xingzhou gripped Wang Xuyin's waist and bit her ear. "She's as stiff as a board on the bed. She doesn't have the charm and allure of Xuyin. Make her learn how to serve properly so she can serve my future wife in the future." "Xue brother, you're so mean. Last month in the backyard, you really gave Xuyin a hard time." My head exploded with a loud bang, and I looked up in disbelief. "What month ago? What backyard?" No one paid me any attention. Xue Xingzhou only gave me a cold glance before undoing Wang Xuyin's clothes and kissing her. Their passionate breathing was almost against my ear, making me want to vomit. I thought he married Wang Xuyin out of anger, that he felt betrayed and wanted to take revenge on me in this way. But I was wrong. They had already been together before I married into the Marquis Mansion. Xue Xingzhou said he would love me forever. But at the same time, he was flirting with Wang Xuyin. How ridiculous. That entire night, my heart felt like it was being stabbed with a sharp knife, tearing my flesh and blood inch by inch. I cried and laughed, tears flowing onto their bright red wedding quilt, spreading helplessly in despair. How I hated myself for handing my life over to such a person. I hated the heavens for being so unfair, leaving no glimmer of light in my life. As soon as I returned to my room, Zhao Laopa pushed open the window and excitedly placed the skin in a prominent spot. "This is a fine piece of skin. Your mother had several like it when she was alive, though they were larger than this one." My mother was the youngest daughter of the Shi family from Jiangnan. She was betrayed in her youth and forced to marry my father, who had fallen on hard times. She was frail and passed away shortly after giving birth to me. The Shi family looked down on my father and refused to acknowledge me, fearing I would be a burden. Only after Xue Xingzhou helped me gain some fame did they agree to write 2 letters for me. But having seen the coldness of the world in my previous life, I merely responded with a few polite words, unwilling to form deep connections. Thus, while the Wang family lived in harmony, I always felt like an outsider. My father saw no benefit in me and couldn't bear to see me looking so gloomy every day. So he never gave me a second glance. The fox fur that Shui Xingzhou gave me felt warm to the touch. Smooth and lustrous. Such a fine thing was something I didn't deserve in the Wang family. In my previous life, Wang Shuyin tore this fur into pieces and threw it into the fireplace right in front of me. Some things that are not fit to be seen in public think they deserve the best. Sister. It's not certain who will win in the end. At that time, I didn't understand what she meant, until I became a concubine and Wang Shuyin happily married into the Marquis' mansion. Your brother-in-law can't bear to part with your childhood friendship. But at the same time, he says you have a dull personality, like a nun in the mountains. He couldn't bear that you had no virginity left. Yet he took me before your wedding. Sister, your so-called envy-inducing affection is nothing special. Even my mother and I, with our petty schemes, couldn't withstand it. Only then did I realize how deep the pit they had dug for me. This time, I will take the fox fur to Wang Shuyin's room myself. Since you two have set your sights on each other, I naturally must do everything in my power to bring you together. My mother left behind many servants, but over the years, most have been replaced by my stepmother. The only one left who is my age is a young girl named Biluo. I summoned her and lit a basin of charcoal. The red embers and blue smoke swirled, casting a flickering light on her panicked eyes. Biluo, I cannot give you what your sister promised you, but I can promise you a clean death, one that will not involve your parents. I did not hide my true intentions, and Biluo was so frightened that she collapsed on the ground. Miss, please spare my life. Miss, please spare my life. I did not even bother with the usual formalities, such as saying that I had treated her well or that I would spare her life. I placed all the family contracts within reach. Zhao Laopa pulled by Luo's hair, forcing her face close to the burning charcoal. I know about your brother forcing a virtuous woman into prostitution. I've investigated everything. If you fail to carry out my orders, someone will go to the county office tomorrow to accuse your entire family. They'll probably be beheaded. Take this piece of leather. Say there's an urgent matter to discuss with her alone. Once you're inside and no one else is around, they'll teach you the skill, and you can use it on my dear sister. I nodded, and an old woman stepped forward to pry open Biluo's mouth and feed her a pill. Bai Luo, come back safely. I'll give you the antidote. Otherwise, you'll end up with your intestines rotting out. In my previous life, my stepmother paid an old midwife to teach Bai Luo how to break my body while I was unconscious. Such a skill, why not try it herself? It would be a waste of money. I bet this time, Wang Shuyin will still tear the skin to shreds. And inside this fox fur is the high-quality sedative I prepared for her. As Bai Luo stepped out the door, her personal maid Bai Qing walked in. Mr. Shui is waiting to see you in the front hall. He said someone is trying to harm you and told you to find a way to go there immediately. In my previous life, this never happened. I instinctively pressed my hand against the wound on my leg from the day I was reborn, the pain bringing me back to my senses. I won't see him. Zhao Laopa took out paper and ink, then spread a piece of felt on the small table. A few sheets of flower-patterned paper were placed on top, and she began to speak. Miss, your temperament has changed. This is for the best. She finished speaking, lifted her head, and looked at me with love, her eyes moist. In my brief and tragic previous life, only she had truly protected me. I held Zhao Popo's hand and smiled slowly. In the past, I had nothing, so I begged for scraps, acted cute and obedient, hoping others would reward me. But I was wrong. Even though the entire Bai Luo family's contracts were in my hands, she still dared to betray her master. People always look down on those below them. They climb higher and trample those below them underfoot. I was truly mistaken. I had nothing, so they should have feared me, respected me, and handed over everything I desired. Grandma. They fear loss more than I do. It took me a long time and the sacrifice of my life to understand. My wretched, lonely life, no matter who I collide with. They will bleed. Beeching returned, running into the courtyard. She spoke tremblingly. Miss Billuo is dead. She died with blood flowing from all 7 orifices in the second Miss's courtyard. The second Miss is still dazed and doesn't know what happened. I exhaled deeply and nodded slowly. Tomorrow. Find someone to go to the county office and expose all the good deeds her brother has done. By Luo. I was lying to you. You've caused me so much suffering, I'll make sure your entire family suffers as well. When my father returned after being dismissed from his post, I had already been punished by kneeling in the corridor for an hour. Upon seeing me, he strode over and kicked me on the shoulder. Wretch! Why didn't you just die? The stepmother cried and rushed over to stop him. Master! Don't hit Scene. It must be something I or Schwer did to upset her, causing her to harm her own sister like this. I leaned on the railing and knelt straight again. Father! Your daughter is willing to give up the marriage to the Schwer family for my younger sister. Even the stepmother's fake tears stopped for a moment. A moment later, she spoke in a weak voice. Scene knows that the young master of the Schwer family doesn't want her. Isn't this just poking at Schwer's heart? But this one sentence made the enraged father come to his senses. He had spent his entire life climbing the ranks to become a 5th-rank official, and this marriage alliance was his only hope for the future. But when he glanced at his stepmother, who was crying so hard her tears were like raindrops, he hardened his heart. Your sister has been crying ever since she woke up. You will stay kneeling here until you realize your mistake. I said nothing, lowering my head like a quail. Kneeling wasn't the worst part, what worried me most was the stepmother. The old nurse she had hired to teach Bai Luo had already been dealt with. And now that Bai Luo was dead, she would be unable to sleep, constantly filled with suspicion. During the half-minute that Wang Xuyin fainted, what had I made Bai Luo do? She dared not even send someone to check on her, no matter how tight-lipped she was. When it came to her own daughter, she dared not take any risks. Thinking of this, the corners of my mouth slowly curled upward. Winter came suddenly, and snow fell on the night of the punishment. Zhao Laopa had already come once in the afternoon, and now she brought a portable heater and a charcoal brazier. After 3 whole days, Wang Xuyin was already lively and playful again, and the entire family had forgotten that I was still kneeling here. When my father thought of me, his expression had improved significantly. Just begging for mercy. Your temper really isn't pleasing. I couldn't stand up, so I had 2 maids help me sit down in my father's study. It wasn't too cold, I had endured such days in my previous life. But my knees would need some time to heal. I sipped the hot tea and exhaled a puff of cold air. Father, do you know that my younger sister has been infatuated with the crown prince for a long time? Every time there's a banquet, the 2 of them always meet. What nonsense! I see you haven't kneeled enough. You're even slandering your own sister. I didn't argue, but instead handed him the thick stack of papers in my hands. Father, aren't you curious how my maid was poisoned to death in your sister's courtyard? My sister, unable to win the prince's affection, bribed my maid to poison her. Fortunately, my daughter was clever, otherwise it would have been your eldest daughter who died. The note from the pharmacy, along with the maid's confession, were all there. My dear father glanced at them and trembled, dropping the entire bundle into the charcoal brazier, sending up a cloud of smoke. I covered my nose and coughed twice. Father, don't be afraid. I didn't come to accuse or blame you. The Schwer family is simple. They've been noble for generations but haven't gotten involved in factional struggles. Though they've fallen on hard times in recent years, they're still a good match for you. But precisely because they don't get involved in factional struggles, how much can they really help you? Seeing me change the subject, My father frowned in confusion. You're just a liar. What do you know about factional struggles? Go back and rest. Father! I want to try my luck at the Eastern Palace. Oh my. My father slapped his forehead. What are you thinking? Do you want to be a princess? I lifted my head, revealing my fair and delicate face. What if your daughter just wants to be a concubine? Even if it's just a low-ranking one, it's still better than nothing. My father froze. I knew he was calculating. Long ago, I had been betrothed to the Shui family. Wang Xuyin was a reckless and spoiled girl, highly favored by both of them. How could they bear to send her to the imperial family to be a lowly concubine? I smiled. Father, what if I told you that the stack of documents you just burned were all forged by me? The once idle study fell silent for a moment. Shuangwen stared at me because I was beautiful enough. I could kneel in the snow for 3 days because I was resilient. Catching the stepmother and Wang Xuyin's mistakes was clever. Poisoning by Luo directly was ruthless. Forging evidence and outmaneuvering my father was cunning. Then, my father's brows had relaxed. But there was still some worry. Will Shuangwen agree? Our family's official position is here. And your mother's family has no support. I laughed. They've met countless times in the backyard with our daughter. Xuyin is young and ignorant, doesn't he? As a prince. Understand? If this were to be discovered, you'd have to sacrifice your life and kneel to death under the imperial plaque bestowed upon his family. The Shui family would be the first to be terrified. Father. Fortune is sought in danger. And lost in danger. The stepmother was naturally delighted. In her eyes, the prince's concubine was no better than a servant maid. Marrying into a marquis's family was far more secure. As for how to force the Shui family to swallow this bitter pill, that was not my concern. The stepmother had a whole arsenal of schemes waiting for them. After Shuangwen was rejected by me last time, he sent messengers every few days, even going to my father to beg for an audience with me. I pondered for a while and finally nodded. When we met again, his eyes were bloodshot, and the area under his eyes was dark and swollen. Ayin, did you manage to escape? Did they? He had also been reborn. I turned to call Zhao Laopa to guard the door, then looked over with tear-filled eyes. I bit my lip, my face pale, limping as I walked, saying nothing, only lowering my head in silence. I put on a pitiful act. Did they make you kneel again? Shuangwen's expression was filled with concern. He carefully took out a silk-lined box. It was the jade hairpin he had given me before our marriage in my previous life. Pure and flawless. Translucent and lustrous. Ayin. I carved this myself. Rest assured. I will ask your family for your hand as soon as I return to the mansion. From now on, I will protect you. And no one will ever hurt you again. I pushed the box back without a word. Which Ayin is the prince calling? My sister's name also ends with the character in. If you're calling her, she should respond. Shuangwen froze. Then suddenly looked up at me. In. Why are you acting so strangely today? Have you also returned? I found it amusing but didn't laugh. The prince is acting strangely today. Are you ill? What nonsense are you talking about? As soon as I finished speaking, the room fell silent. Shuangwen couldn't hide it well. And his eyes, as cold and ruthless as in a previous life, instantly locked onto me. I stood up and sighed with a sorrowful expression. Shui Lang. Sometimes I think, if the suffering I've endured could be inflicted upon the person who wronged me, that would be so much better. Now, I haven't been betrayed by anyone, I'm still pure and innocent. Scene. Shuangwen trembled all over and took a big step forward to grab my hand. I stepped back 2 steps without leaving a trace. He was overjoyed. It's heaven that can't bear to see us lovers parted. Scene. This time I will not betray you. After you died, That vile woman grew even more restless. I punished her twice. And she confessed everything. She revealed all the methods she planned to use against you. And only then did I realize I had misunderstood you. Rest assured, I will not let her off easily. Once that vile woman falls into our hands, you may dispose of her as you see fit. I seemed to be moved, covering my face with a handkerchief as if recalling a sad memory. Shuangwen, you must avenge me. There were no banquets in winter, but the first one was the Duke's Plum Blossom Banquet. It was cold. So to add to the festivities, they invited all the officials and their families who could attend court. My stepmother, after hearing my father's words, also said she would take me along, but she had already arranged for Wang Xuyin to be dressed in one outfit after another. The orange-red one was too old-fashioned and sent to me. The watercolor one was too frivolous. And the sky blue one was too cold. I looked at the pile of gaudy ready-made clothes and couldn't help but shake my head. She'll say again that she made so many outfits for me this season. Yet I don't like any of them. Zhao Laopa asked me what I wanted to wear. Looking at the bronze mirror, I recalled my fleeting encounter with the crown prince in a previous life. At that time, everyone in the neighborhood knew about how Shui Xingzhou had humiliated and tormented me, even going so far as to paint explicit scenes of it. It was during Lady Ho's banquet, and I was being watched by two maids as I worked in the garden. The prince came over at that moment, accompanied by Shui Xingzhou, who pointed out the most beautiful flowers in the garden. When he passed by me, the prince paused slightly. Shui Shi. Killing someone is no more than a matter of life and death. She is also a pitiful person. Shui Xingzhou shot me a menacing glance before forcing a smile. When I was young, I once heard a scholar say that many women in the northern regions, due to their work riding horses, have no virginity on their wedding day. Zhao Laopa asked again, and I finally snapped back to reality. Didn't you make a set of pale yellow clothes last year? With a moon-white cloak as an accessory? Yellow is bright and eye-catching. The crown prince suffers from a nasal condition and cannot tolerate ordinary perfumes. So I opened my perfume pouch and placed some orange peel inside. Her hair was perfectly styled with no flaws, but she pinned two thumb-sized velvet flowers behind her ears. Zhao Laopa smiled broadly, tying the silk ribbon with great care. The girl has grown up. With such beauty and virtue, she would be a great match for the young master of the Shui family. The smile in my eyes froze. By the time I reached the door, my stepmother and Wang Xuyin hadn't arrived yet. So I could only stand in the wind, dragging my sick leg. What's the matter? Are you going to ride in the same carriage as us? Wang Xuyin had always been a bold and outspoken person, saying whatever she thought without hesitation. I took a step back. The banquet tonight will be lively. If we split into separate carriages, it wouldn't be proper. What does mother say? My stepmother, of course, understood the meaning behind my words, and pulled Wang Xuyin into the carriage. When I lifted the curtain, the mother and daughter were already snuggled up together. Wang Xuyin looked at me defiantly and said triumphantly, "It's a pity that your mother died so early. Otherwise, you wouldn't be alone today." According to my old nature, no matter how hurt or sad I felt inside, I would always pretend not to care on the surface. It was as if doing so would prevent such a painful scene from hurting me. I smiled and raised my hand to slap her across the face. "Who gave you the right to speak ill of my mother?" Wang Xuyin covered her face and screamed, then lunged toward me. I raised my hand and slapped her again. "It doesn't matter. If that's how you feel, neither of us will attend the banquet at the Duke's mansion." My stepmother seemed to snap out of it and quickly pulled Wang Xuyin back. "Xuyin, sit down. I'll deal with her when I return." On the way back, the mother and daughter glared at me with clenched teeth, and I felt quite satisfied. The Duke's mansion was bustling with people and carriages, with over 20 maids and servants outside to greet the guests. The carriages were driven to an empty alley, and the horses were led into the woods. Before the visiting cards were even taken out, the maids in charge greeted them according to protocol. Sue's stepmother smiled proudly. Pay close attention to these rules and regulations. You'll need them in the future. So don't be careless. Roan Wangshuing shyly agreed. We walked through the corridor garden, turning countless corners before finally arriving at today's Jiangshui garden. Male guests were on one side and female guests on the other, separated by a small scenic lake. On both sides of the lake were pavilions called opposite horse pavilions. These were where young men and women from prominent families who had formed a poetry society gathered to compose verses. The lake breeze carried their voices, and their literary talents were thus spread far and wide. In her previous life, every time such an occasion arose, Shuangwen was always the busiest. He was busy helping me refine the wording, correct the meter, and find friends from prominent families to promote me. He helped me gain fame in this circle that wasn't mine. And it was also he who dragged me to the Wang family's door on the second day of his wedding and berated me for being unchaste. He bound my hands and feet, preventing me from taking my own life, and threatened the Wang family, forcing me to work as a lowly servant in the household. He married Wang Shuyin just to watch me suffer, forcing me to serve them. Afterward, Shuangwen threw the prepared handkerchief in my face. You worthless woman. Look at yourself. Overnight, I went from being a blissfully happy bride to a promiscuous woman. Almost everyone cursed me, pitying the peerless young gentleman, believing that his heart had been completely misplaced. Thinking of this, I turned and headed straight for the small plum grove. Red plum blossoms bloomed against the frost and snow, and there were few footprints on the path. After taking a few steps, I stopped. A nobleman in purple robes, with black hair and a white jade crown, stood ahead. Even his back exuded an overwhelming aura of power. I gazed greedily at him. This was what I had pursued all my life, the power to stand atop these wolves. If I succeeded, I would become an imperial concubine, a noble concubine, or even the second most powerful person in the realm. Everyone would bow and kowtow before me, and no one would dare to insult or humiliate me. If I failed, it would be the crime of treason, leading to the extermination of my entire clan. Not bad. When Prince Xiao turned around, I happened to look up. The handkerchief I held in both hands was filled with fallen plum blossoms. The soft snow crunched under my feet, as if I were walking on clouds, light and airy. Who is that young lady up ahead? I did not answer him, but instead curtsied gracefully and stepped aside to make way. You're being unreasonable, young lady. I was here first, so why should I make way for you? I pretended to be surprised and knelt in the snow. I am Queen Minwang's daughter, Zine. I have offended your highness. Please forgive me. Xiao did not blame me, merely waving his hand dismissively. What are you going to do with these flowers? Eat them. I paused, raised my eyes, and smiled with arched brows. There's a recipe in * the mountain family's simple offering star. Soak white plums in sandalwood powder water. Mix with flour to make dumpling wrappers. And use a 5-pronged iron tool shaped like a plum blossom to cut out each piece. Once cooked, dip them in chicken broth, with no more than 200 flowers per serving. One can imagine how unforgettable the taste must be. This commoner woman is drooling with desire to eat them. Perhaps this answer surprised him, as Xiao couldn't help but whistle in admiration. My nose isn't very good. And in winter, nothing tastes right. But hearing you describe it, I'm starting to feel hungry too. Never mind. You can have it. I nodded and stood up, carefully searching for the plum blossoms that had fallen under the tree. Along the way, I picked up a smooth, lustrous amulet. Before long, Zhao Ma came over. She handed me a hand warmer from the master of the house and whispered, Something has happened to the second young miss. At the poetry gathering at the pavilion, Prince Shui slipped and fell into the pond. The thin layer of ice on top broke completely. It's strange. Our second young miss called out to Shuang, and he dived right in. The Duke's mansion already has enough headaches. Now 2 people have fallen in. And the pond looks like it's full of dumplings. The second young lady still hasn't come up. She insists on saving Prince Shui. Zhao Mama already knew that I didn't want to discuss the marriage with the Shui family anymore. So she spoke vividly, rolling her eyes so hard they almost popped out of her head. When they were pulled out, they were soaking wet and clinging to each other. It was indecent. I laughed softly, dabbing my handkerchief. Auntie, take this jade token to the Duke's wife and tell her I found it on the road. This was Shuangwen's treasure, lost in the plum garden in my previous life, causing quite a stir. I slowly made my way to the banquet hall, overhearing whispers along the way. Goodness gracious! What kind of demon is that Wang girl? She was pulled out of a cold pool, and now she's barged into the prince's chambers to tend to him. The Duke's mansion is in for some bad luck this time. Didn't they say that the crown prince had his eye on the eldest daughter of the Wang family? What does it matter which girl it is? He's just a lowly 5th-rank official. If he can climb onto the Marquis's mansion, it's worth sending both of them over. Great. I guess I'll have to start at the lowest rank in the East Palace. After the commotion died down, my stepmother and Wang Xuyin finally came out. Wang Xuyin was wrapped up tightly, her face ashen, and she needed someone to support her as she walked, with several hot water bottles tucked under her arms. Even so, she looked at me smugly. Tomorrow, I'm engaged to the prince. You'll have to give me a big red envelope. Won't you? I didn't say a word. As I took a step forward, a senior maid from the Duke's mansion approached. Miss Wang, you found an important item. This is a jade scepter bestowed by the crown prince. His Highness said it is a token of his favor for your discretion. She held a large lacquered wood box adorned with crimson clouds. Glancing indifferently at my stepmother. Are you cold, second miss? The lady had me prepare some ginseng, which has just been sent to your residence. The lady said it's a pity there are still 2 banquets in the 12th month, and you probably won't be able to attend. Take good care of yourself. The maid finished speaking, placed the items in Zhao Laopo's hands, and turned to leave. The stepmother, who had been smiling moments ago, now looked embarrassed and hurriedly pulled Wang Xuyin into the carriage. The sudden cold snap didn't affect Wang Xuyin much. She recovered after 2 days of rest. However, Shuangwen fell seriously ill and ran a fever for several days. The stepmother took Wang Xuyin to visit him every day, and rumors began to spread in the neighborhood. Everyone said that Shuangwen had always been coming and going from the Wang family for Wang Xuyin, and that the two were as close as gold and jade. When Shuangwen fell into the water, the second young lady of the Wang family immediately jumped in after him. They praised Wang Xuyin for being loyal and kind-hearted, and said that Shuangwen had chosen the right person. However, the Shui family did not think so. As soon as the rumors spread, they began to openly and secretly prevent Wang Xuyin from visiting the Shui family. The stepmother, with a smirk on her lips, immediately went to the Shui mansion to cause a scene. It was your son who came to our mansion every day to deliver gifts. I still have the gift list. Just a month ago, weren't you the ones rushing over to arrange a marriage? Now that your son has drowned, my daughter risked her life to save him. Yet you refuse to acknowledge it. If you don't give me an explanation today, I'll kill myself right here. The Marquis's mansion is powerful, and we are just small officials. We can't do anything to you. The Marquis's wife was so flustered by this shrewish woman that she didn't know what to do. It was Shuangwen who woke up and coldly agreed to the marriage. If she wants to marry, let her marry. The reply from the Sher family also reached my hands. The Sher family has many daughters married outside the clan, and their relatives are numerous and intertwined. The family had long forgotten about my mother, the girl who had been defeated in a match. But upon seeing my letter requesting to enter the palace, they immediately sent 2 cousins north. My father also became proactive, going so far as to hire a wet nurse who had once worked in the palace. Both of my daughters will marry into high families. It must be our ancestors looking down on us. I smiled softly and sighed at the right moment. Unfortunately, if only our Wang family had a male heir. If Xin had a brother, she would have someone to rely on in the future. Over the years, my father had taken several concubines, but none of them had given birth to a son. He found the affairs in the harem too troublesome and had given up on the idea. Now that I mentioned it, he fell into deep thought. Xin is so sensible. In the spring of the following year, the Marquis's mansion sent people to marry Wang Xuyin. The ceremony was modest, and even the servants who came to welcome the bride were very lax. But Wang Xuyin was very happy and begged her father to let me give her my wedding dress. All those years of effort gone to waste. If I hadn't called you, your sister would probably be hiding in her room crying right now. I smiled and patted her bright red wedding gown. It's just something I don't want. Wang Xuyin, you've always liked picking up things like this. She stood up angrily, her jewels swaying with her. I held her shoulders. How can you be so disrespectful? How can you accept such a generous gift from me? In this life, Xue Xingzhou was reborn, and his marriage was arranged early. They had likely only met secretly a few times and had not engaged in any improper behavior. Sister, the craft that mother taught Billy to learn, do you think she mastered it well? Do you think she was doing in your room on the day she died? Without needing me to say more, Wang Xuyin's face turned pale. I need to find my mother. Call my mother. Hurry and find my mother. Your mother is busy entertaining guests up front. How could she come here? The matchmaker smiled and knocked on the door. The auspicious time has arrived. The bride is ready to leave. The timing was perfect. Wang Xuyin married quickly and returned just as swiftly. Xue Xingzhou didn't even wait until the next day. That night, he threw Wang Xuyin, who was bound and gagged, at the door. Her father and stepmother, who had just finished drinking and were having sweet dreams, rushed out, but were so frightened by the scene before them that their legs gave way and they fell to the ground. The old women of the Marquis's mansion put their hands on their waists and came forward, shouting loudly, "Mr. Wang has arrived just in time. On the day of your daughter's wedding, there was no blood. What kind of family values does the Wang family have?" Wang Xuyin was even more pitiful than I was in my previous life. She wasn't even properly dressed. Her inner garments exposed as she was bound. Her face bore 2 bright red handprints. Seeing her stepmother come out, she screamed desperately, "Mother! Save me! Mother! Please save me!" Ah! To think of it! She was still better off than me. No matter how badly I was treated, I didn't even have anyone to turn to for help. The stepmother snapped out of it and rushed over to hug Wang Xuyin, ignoring the struggles. "My dear daughter, it's all that slut Wang Xin's fault. It's that slut who ruined you." Those words struck the father like a thunderbolt. Seeing that this girl was already ruined, how could the girl who was to enter the palace be dragged into this? He rushed forward in 2 strides, swung his arm, and slapped his stepmother across the face. Foolish woman! Thinking of his future. He gathered his courage. "Xue, you say my daughter didn't bleed, so you're going to slander my entire family's reputation with your lies? Before the marriage, you met my daughter multiple times in the backyard. Who knows what you did? Now you dare to slander my family." I leaned against the corridor, almost clapping in delight, but 2 tears fell from my eyes in excitement. Zhao Lao let out a cry and hurried over to wipe them away. "Good girl. Don't cry." I shook my head. glancing at the 20 female guards sent by the Sher family. I'm crying for them, such a loving family of 3. After my father finished speaking, Shuangwen remained silent. Let's discuss this inside. Mr. Wang, spare yourself some dignity. He signaled to the servants and stormed inside. The moment he saw me, Shuangwen immediately approached with a fawning expression. Seeing, I brought that bitch. He turned around and dragged Wang Xuyin in front of me. I demoted her from wife to concubine. You are still the most respected legitimate wife in the Marquis's mansion. Let's start over. Seeing, I will treat you well. I ignored him and slowly knelt down to look at Wang Xuyin. She was lying on the ground in a disheveled state, glaring at me with hatred in her eyes. Are you satisfied now? Seeing me demoted to a concubine and suffering such humiliation. Are you satisfied? Wang Xing, how could you be so cruel? I'm your own sister, your father's flesh and blood. As she spoke, she began to cry painfully, her face covered in tears. I watched for a moment longer, feeling the pent-up anger in my heart slowly dissipate, before saying, but this was the path you and your mother prepared for me. Have you forgotten? How can you justify harming me? Yet when I use the same tactics on you, it's considered malicious? Wang Xuyin stopped crying, her body trembling. No, I didn't. Sister, save me. This is all my mother's plan. I couldn't stop her. Sister, I don't want to go back to the Marquis's mansion. You don't know how he treats me. I don't want to go back to the Marquis's mansion. It was all my mother's doing. Little sister, don't worry. The Sher family has sent many beautiful concubines to the capital for our father. And soon your mother will have nothing left. Without her, you'll have to spend the rest of your life in the Marquis's mansion. No. I don't believe it. You bitch. I'll kill you. I stood up and took a step back in disgust. Seeing that I had vented my anger, Shuangwen was even happier. He said loudly to my father, your second daughter has lost her chastity and is unfit to be the main wife of my mansion. She can be demoted to a concubine. Lord Wang, let's set a good date. And I will come to marry your eldest daughter. He had struck at my father's Achilles heel. Impossible. He was so anxious he was jumping up and down. This wicked girl is yours to do with as you please. Kill her or dismember her, it's all up to you. From now on, the Wang family has no such daughter. But my eldest daughter is the one personally chosen by the crown prince as his consort. She is to go to the Eastern Palace next month. Shuangwen's expression changed. He strode forward and grabbed my father by the collar. What? Say that again. Where is Seeing going? My father was being dragged by the collar and swallowed hard before he could speak. The Eastern Palace. I don't believe it. Shuangwen pushed my father aside and reached out to grab me. Seeing, are they forcing you? You love me so much. Why would you go to the Eastern Palace? Before I could speak, I weakly glanced backward, and the guards behind me stepped forward and slapped Shuangwen across the face. How dare you? The prince's edict is here. How dare you interfere? The slap stunned Shuangwen. He had come here confidently, thinking of me as his possession. But he never imagined that I had turned against him and become a member of the Eastern Palace. Now, he could only kneel and pay respects to his master. Impossible. Wang Xing, if you don't marry me today, I'll go to the streets and cause a scene. I'll go to the Eastern Palace and accuse you. I'll make sure your entire Wang family dies. Fine. I raised my head and looked at him calmly. The Yingyang Marquis mansion has over 500 people. If half of them die, it's all profit for the Wang family. Let's die together. Shuangwen backed down. He took 2 steps back, then raised his head again like a madman. Seeing, I know you have no choice. I'll find a way. Wait for me. After saying that, he left with a group of servants, looking dejected. Of course, he didn't forget to drag Wang Xuyin away as well. The stepmother cried herself hoarse behind them, but she didn't even try to keep her daughter. The next day, my father summoned the clan elders and expelled Wang Xuyin from the family in the ancestral hall. The stepmother was locked up in her room after causing such a commotion. Tell everyone she's gone mad. The more he thought about it, the more miserable he felt. He had spent his entire life with this foolish mother and daughter, and hadn't even had a son. In a fit of anger, he took all the concubines that had been arranged for him. There are 3 great disgraces in life, and having no heir is the greatest. That poisonous woman is not even worth a fraction of Shenyang. I went to see my stepmother once. In just a few days, she had aged terribly, and most of her hair had turned white. As soon as she saw me, she desperately rushed toward me. You bitch. You ruined my schwer. I'll kill you. You bitch. She was held back by 2 burly old women, crying helplessly. What do you want from me? Kill me. Sell me to a brothel. Just spare my daughter. I didn't say a word, just watched silently. It was heartbreaking, looking at her face. I thought, if my mother were still alive, she would have protected me like this, and she would have cried for me like this. So I said, my sister has been demoted to a concubine. I heard that Prince Shui tortures her in every way every day. She'd rather be dead than live like this. I must have gone mad, seeking my mother whom I had never met by provoking my enemy, watching my stepmother's hysterical outburst. I felt an inexplicable sense of joy. Xue Xingzhou went to great lengths to send me a letter. It was filled with heartfelt regret, saying that after I died in my previous life, he realized how much he loved me. He said he had seen countless beauties in the world, but none compared to the feeling he had when he first saw me. He told me to pack my belongings and that he would take me away in 3 days. After reading it, I almost laughed out loud. How had I never noticed before that this two-faced, honey-tongued villain was actually a romantic at heart? Zhao Lao Pa. Go tell the messenger that I agree. 3 days later. It was the day I was to enter the Eastern Palace. In my previous life, I had placed all my trust in this man, like countless other women in the world, believing that marrying into a good family was the right path for a woman. How laughable. What did Xue Xingzhou truly love about me? He loved my appearance, my docile nature that always yielded to others, and how easy I was to manipulate. Later, it was probably because he felt resentful. He thought that someone like me, without any backbone, should be forever under his control. But he never expected that I would lose my virginity, and even the adulterer couldn't be found. Xue Xingzhou's dark and twisted nature had ample reason to be unleashed, and the abuse and violence he inflicted on me brought him endless pleasure. Even when I wanted to die, he wouldn't allow it. So-called power, so-called control. This time, I wanted to taste it too. While Xue Xingzhou was freezing in the woods outside the city, I boarded a small palanquin at sunset, entered through the side gate of the main gate of Shenyang Palace, and walked through the long corridor. The entire journey was desolate and cold, a stark contrast to the lively wedding that sent me to hell in my previous life, one underground, the other in the heavens. But before I entered the palace, my 2 cousins from the Shu family brought 10 cartloads of rare treasures to the emperor, claiming it was the family's way of expressing gratitude for the emperor's kindness. Everyone knew they were there to support me. I entered the palace in a small palanquin, but I had tens of thousands of silver notes hidden on my person. 2 others entered the palace with me, both ranked as concubines, 1 rank below me. The crown prince was busy and didn't come for over 10 days. Only visiting the crown princess's courtyard once. The crown princess was the granddaughter of the head scholar of the Hanlin Academy, a woman of noble birth, well educated, and courteous. During her daily greetings, she never spoke harshly, let alone made things difficult for others. Wei Liangyuan, who lived in the West Wing, was young and loved to joke around. Every time they paid their respects, she was the one who spoke the most. Sisters, you don't know, but something big has happened in the streets. You're always so well informed. What's this interesting news? Tell us quickly. The Shui family of Yingyang Marquis. That lovesick fool. Didn't he just get married? But the next day, he demoted his new wife to a concubine. Now he's causing a commotion at the Wang family's house every day. Some people were already glancing at me discreetly. Wei Liangyuan seemed oblivious. Goodness gracious. This is such a commotion. Shueisher went mad on the street, demanding that the Wang family compensate them with another daughter. The Wang family has 2 daughters. But aside from the second young lady, the crown princess consort coughed politely, interrupting Wei Liangyuan. Oh dear. My mind is overheating again. Sister Wang, you are so generous. Please don't take it to heart. I slowly turned the hot tea toward myself, cupped it in my hands, and took a slow sip without responding. If I accepted it, it would look bad for me. If I refused, the words would fall to the ground. But at least I wouldn't be seen as a soft-hearted pushover. Wei Liangyuan didn't seem embarrassed at all. She just laughed to herself. The Shui family has been in decline for the past 2 years. And now they've produced such a good-for-nothing. They're probably finished. It wasn't until the crown princess called everyone to disperse that Wei Liangyuan emerged, fanning herself with a folding fan. Oh my. You're still alive. If my family had produced such a thing, I would have killed myself long ago. No one could have imagined that night, Shuangwen came to my room. As soon as he smelled the dried orange peel on the table, he smiled. How refreshing. That plum blossom dumpling you made has been on my mind for days. Make some for me another time. I've been drinking that formula from Dr. Xing lately, and my nose is working better now. Before I could even bow, he had already said so much, leaving me feeling a bit awkward. I knelt on the ground and performed the full ceremony. But he helped me up. There's no need for such formalities in the future. The items the Sure family presented this time are very useful. The emperor is pleased. And you have contributed. I nodded and smiled, but felt awkward and shifted my body, blocking the desk. Shuangwen looked curiously, and I reluctantly revealed the words I had written. This. He paused for a moment, but despite his excellent composure, he couldn't help but speak. This calligraphy is rather poor. I lowered my head, pretending to be very shy. Shuangwen loved calligraphy and painting, especially his own calligraphy, which was strong and powerful, with every stroke full of energy. Even the emperor praised it highly. Upon seeing my poor handwriting, he began teaching me from the basics that very night. Not only did he not allow me to attend his bedchamber, but he also did not let me eat dinner. Fortunately, it was not my fault that I spent every night writing until bedtime, so I accepted him as my calligraphy master. Shuangwen was a good man and a good prince. Except for the princess's quarters. He visited the other courtyards roughly the same number of times each month. Wei Liangyuan was the first to become pregnant. She was overjoyed and distributed rewards to the entire Eastern Palace, like a money-giving child. Unfortunately, she was too boastful, and she passed away before 3 months had passed. For imperial physicians examined her thoroughly and concluded that she had excessive yang energy depleting her yin, leading to yin deficiency and excessive fire. I am curious. How did you do it? The crown princess consort loved embroidery but feared harming her eyes, so she would always invite me over to help her design patterns. When asked this question, I didn't even pause with the needle in my hand. Your Highness, I am innocent. I hadn't even had the chance to act before she lost the royal heir. It was heaven that protected the royal heir in your womb. I merely wanted to claim the credit. But I lack the ability. Her deep eyes looked at me, and she smiled shortly. You're a clever one. I quietly lowered my head and continued embroidering the handkerchief with auspicious clouds and purple hues. After becoming pregnant, Wei Liangyuan developed a fondness for buns, with the filling mixed into the dough so that no one could discern her preferences. The family had specially obtained a pregnancy-preserving formula, which included ginseng in just the right amount. Therefore, no one could detect it. Every day, the steamer baskets in the kitchen were boiled with ginseng water. The appropriate amount became excessive, causing the mother's body to overheat. Even if the birth went smoothly, she would bleed heavily postpartum due to the large amount of ginseng. The more I thought about it, the faster my hands moved, one stitch after another. Was Wei Liangyuan at fault? Bullying me, who had no background, was not wrong, but her mistake was getting pregnant before the crown princess. Wasn't that rushing to her death? This prince, who looked so kind-hearted, had a heart darker than mine. Shuangwen had lost his first child and was only gloomy for 2 months before he found out he had a legitimate son. He was so happy that he ran down the steps when he left court. By year's end, the crown prince's consort gave birth to a young prince. I personally attended to her postpartum care. When Shuangwen asked, I shook my head, saying only that I felt close to the crown prince's consort, like an older sister. He was truly puzzled. So he had someone investigate and learn of my life at home over the years. From then on, he began to show me genuine affection. Just as the crown prince's consort had finished her postpartum confinement, Zhao Laopa sent me a message saying that my stepmother had been driven to death by the concubine in the household. Wang Xuyin, suffering in the marquis's mansion, tried every means to send a message home, and her stepmother received one. She immediately grabbed a kitchen knife and rushed out to save her suffering daughter from the marquis's mansion. Coincidentally, my father's concubine Yenner was pregnant. Not only was she unafraid of her crazy appearance, but she was also quite interested in telling her about the hardships Wang Xuyin had endured in the marquis's mansion. My stepmother had been imprisoned for 2 years, and her body was already weak. This news caused her to have a stroke, and she died 2 days later. I looked at the letter with a heavy heart. I must inform Zhao Laopa to pass the news to my dear sister. Mother and daughter are connected by blood, they have always been close. She must know that she now has no one to rely on. Also tell Yenner that once her child is born, my father will be of no use to us. We can dispose of him as we see fit. The year Shuangwen ascended the throne, I was also pregnant. That same year, Wei Pin, who had become a concubine in the palace, was caught poisoning my pregnancy medicine, and all the years of her bullying me were exposed. Shuangwen was furious and had her banished to the cold palace. On the day my little prince was a month old, the emperor held a banquet. I saw Shui Xingzhou again. He glared at me with a cold, menacing expression, as if I were some traitorous pet he had abandoned. The gentle, refined demeanor of the young gentleman he once was gone, and he could no longer pretend. I heard that he was recklessly tormenting Wang Xuyin in the mansion, and his official duties had been mishandled several times, nearly leading to his dismissal and investigation. He had become increasingly listless. Meanwhile, I sat beside the emperor in all my splendor, with everyone below me bowing in reverence. Why wasn't fortune turning in my favor? When my imperial son turned 3, the empress passed away after a long illness, leaving the imperial consort's position vacant. Several concubines were vying fiercely for the position due to the power it held over the harem. I wrote a letter to the Shi family in Jiangnan, instructing them to purchase grain and supplies with a large sum of money and send them to General Zhang in the northwest. Oh, and one more thing. I had them use their money to introduce Shui Xingzhou to the current Prince of Peace, Xiao Wenyu. He is the leader of the rebellion in the northwest. Shuangwen is obsessed with revenge. In his previous life, Xiaowenu's rebellion nearly succeeded in capturing the capital city of Yudu. If he helps the Prince of Peace seize the throne, won't he be able to dispose of me as he pleases? Since I am also a reincarnated person. He cautiously waited until Xiaowenu had transferred the Northwest Army before he felt safe enough to defect. Shuangwen smugly thought that I, a woman trapped in the Marquis's mansion, would not know about such important national affairs. Now that he had him as his strategist, wouldn't Prince Ping'an be able to achieve great things in no time? But he never expected that the first battle Xiaowenu easily won in the Northwest in his previous life was defeated in just 3 months. Xiaowen rewarded the victors, transferring the direct descendants of the Shi family from the south to serve in the capital. I was granted the title of Empress Dowager and entrusted with the imperial seal. I once imagined a day when Shuangwen would kneel at my feet, crawling and bowing, begging for mercy like a dog. But when that day finally came, I felt that seeing him again was giving him face. It was beneath my dignity. On his first day as the head of the Ministry of Justice, Shi Ziquan, the most promising member of the Shi family, went to visit Shuangwen. At that time, Shuangwen was already in a pitiful state, being escorted back to the capital, enduring hardships and suffering physical abuse, the worst ordeal of his life. Shi Ziquan stood outside, studying the man closely for a moment. This man is a heinous criminal, the right-hand man of the rebel king. Alas, blood is thicker than water, and the emperor is a wise ruler. This is what we'll do, don't let him die. Each day, think of a new torture to inflict on this man surnamed Shui, so that the entire world may know the fate of those who aid tyrants. Shuangwen finally came to his senses and tried to charge forward like a madman. You bastard! It was that woman who ordered you to torture me. I treated her well, yet she is ungrateful and heartless. The prince. Before he could finish, the jailer below cut off his tongue. The young jailer looked at Shi Ziquan with flattery. Sir, please forgive me. This man's mouth was too foul. Shi Ziquan smiled. I will report this to the Empress. You may take credit for this. By the way, I heard that this Shui prince has a taste for men. If there are others in the prison who share his preferences, you may help arrange some matches. Even if he dies, let him die in the arms of a man. Shuangwen, with his tongue cut off, shook his head, his mouth filled with blood. Alas, no one responded to him. Since I took charge of the harem, there have been few incidents that caused the emperor such distress. For example, concubines miscarrying, framing each other, or who stole whose favor, who beat whose palace maid, such trivial matters. He often stayed in my palace, inhaling the faint scent of orange peel. Seeing, the first time I saw you in the plum grove, I thought there was such a beauty in this world. Of course, which man doesn't love beauty? He loved my beauty, and I enjoyed the power he gave me. Who cares how many people are buried in this harem? Or how the former empress actually died? With the imperial seal and a peaceful pillow, even the nightmares that had tormented me for so long had ceased. Indeed, power truly nurtures one.